Welcome back to a new episode of the Animal Liberation Hour, brought to you by Animal Activism Mentorship. We are so grateful that you tune in every week to be inspired by the diversity of impassioned guests we have on our pod. It's crucial to AAM's mission as a free multinational program that supports and uplifts aspiring and seasoned animal rights activists alike. From one-on-one mentorships, free workshops and trainings, to this podcast, AAM seeks to empower humans to create the world they envision, where all animals are treated with respect and compassion. In today's episode, I chatted with former Texas cattle rancher turned farmed animal sanctuary founder and fierce animal rights activist, Renee King-Sonnen. From her deep connection to animals as a young girl, to challenging the status quo in a community of generations of cattle ranchers, Renee didn't let societal norms cloud her moral judgment from doing what is right. In fact, after she bonded with a cow whom she named Rowdy Girl, who was at the time deemed to be sent off to slaughter, Renee decided that enough was enough. Not long after, her cattle ranching operation evolved into a safe haven for animals called Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, where the inspirational Rowdy Girl herself currently resides. Since its inception, the sanctuary has welcomed abused and neglected animals who have been rescued from various industries that have exploited them for human consumption. Renee has an endless treasure chest of stories, many of which left me absolutely speechless. Now, before we proceed to the interview, please be mindful that there are mentions of certain terminology related to sexual assault, which may be triggering to some. Renee also shares traumatic incidents from her past that includes physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Listeners' discretion is advised. And now, be prepared to be blown away by Renee's candidness and effervescent energy that fuels her activism and advocacy for all animals. So thank you, Renee, so much for taking the time out of your busy day, taking care of so many beautiful animals at your lovely sanctuary to chat with us today.
Of course, I've been looking forward to this. I'm glad we could finally get together.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I understand that it can get pretty busy, especially with, the crucial work that you're doing for the animals. And before, we go into the story of your sanctuary and all of the important advocacy that you're doing now, let's start at the very beginning of where that initial seed for animal rights and veganism was planted in your childhood or growing up, or just the organic evolution of that.
Wow, the seed for veganism and animal rights. It's hard to say when the seed was planted, because I really do believe that we're all born vegan, and that we are conditioned to be a carnist. So I think the seed was planted in my mother's womb. And I really do believe that all of us have that seed of eating foods that are good for us, good for the planet, good for the animals. I believe we all have that seed deep within us that doesn't want to harm animals, that doesn't want to kill them, that doesn't want to torture them. I believe that we're taught to be carnist, to kill animals, and we have normalized it in our society. There's a word called Atman, Atman, in Sanskrit, and it means the unborn seed. And I really do believe that we all have that unborn seed inside of us. It's like they're just waiting to unfurl. And man, when it does, look out, because it grows fast. Like the minute my seed opened on October 31st, 2014, and I went vegan, It was like, Katie, bar the door, move on out. There ain't going to be no more animal products eaten in my house.
On Halloween. Oh, what a
Yes.
wonderful way to celebrate Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I didn't expect the word seed to have so much of essence around it. That was a lovely answer. And I think that, yeah, I must agree that, we're all born without wanting to harm another being, human or beyond human beings. If we don't want to cause harm, we don't want to cause suffering, we just want to coexist with them peacefully. And yeah, it's heartbreaking when that gets really urged out of our being because of certain powers that be. But then when we, like you said, when that seed unfurls, it really pushes you to fight against all odds. Like, I don't.
It's like Jack and the Beanstalk, right?
Mhm.
It's like all of a sudden the seed starts growing into the heavens.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what happens. You can see everything, you can feel everything. It's kind of like it was all pushed down into this unborn seed, just waiting for
Mhm.
that moment for you to see, to feel, to see with real eyes, to realize
Mhm.
who you really are. Because imagine for a moment, you were given as a child a peach in one hand or a grape and a little baby chicken or a bunny in the other.
Mhm.
As a baby, as a 2-year-old, you would not bite the head off the chicken or the rabbit. You would eat the grapes or the peach, and you would want to love on that animal. You would want to protect it. That is our true nature. And it's a crime that humanity deadens the true nature of their children. I see it every day in FFA and 4-H. Every day in FFA and 4-H. I mean, these kids, these families that are desensitized to violence, they raise these animals, in FFA and 4-H to be friends. They love them, and then they have to send them to slaughter. It's horrible.
Yeah, I've seen videos of little kids taking these animals who they've bonded with and just crying as their friends are being dragged away from them. And it's like, how is this acceptable? It just feels so. Times like this, I personally struggle to find or to be hopeful in that moment. But then I see a live that you do, or I see a video of a sanctuary where a new resident comes who's been rescued from such horrors. And it really revives that, like, okay, there's good being done and we are part of that movement. So how, growing up for you in that, the FFA and the 4-H community, which is, I imagine, pretty has a strong foothold in where you are and where you grew up. How did you, grow to challenge those beliefs and that indoctrination and decide to step away from the ranching world to animal protection?
Well, I would say that I grew to evolve to protect animals. When I realized, we all have eyes to see, but some of us, walk around blind and, eat dead bodies like zombies. That's what we do. We don't even think about it, right? So when I started to see that these animals were just like us, they just wanted to live and be left alone. They just wanted to live in their own respective communities and be free. I began to question morality. I began to question ethics. I began to question religion. I began to question everything. I've always been the type of person that has to stand for something. Like I've always been that person that is for the quote unquote underdog. But now I'm for the under cow, the under chicken, the under sheep, the under rooster. I mean, now I'm for all of them. It isn't just the underdog.
The under ants, the under beetles,
ants, spiders. It doesn't matter. Scorpions. I mean, I don't. The first thing that comes to my mind anymore is not to kill them.
Yeah,
not to eat them.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind now is to protect them. So, and it's interesting, that lives in all of us, that Atman, that unborn seed of wanting to protect animals,
mm-hmm.
and just to let everyone live and let live and be free. It really does exist in us all.
Yeah.
And so when I began to witness Rowdy Girl, like I would feed Rowdy Girl and as a baby, and she loved me.
Real quick, for any listeners who aren't familiar with who this magnificent Rowdy Girl is, tell us, who is she?
Well, Rowdy Girl, a lot of people think it's me, and I won't make any bones about that. I am pretty rowdy, and I'm a girl, so I do fit the description of being a rowdy girl. But that's not why there's Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Rowdy Girl is a cow, and she's a beautiful cow. She's got a heart on her head, and I actually bought her for $300 before I was vegan. My husband wanted me to get more involved in the cattle ranching industry. So he pulled on my heartstrings and said, "Hey, Renee, there's these baby calves up the road that need a mama. And I don't have any kids. And so I always loved animals, and still do. But, I didn't know that I was not really an animal lover. I was a speciesist, right? I was a speciesist. I didn't know that at the time. Didn't even know what the word was. Mm-hmm. But so I bought Rowdy Girl, and I began to bottle feed her, and I began to develop a relationship with this baby calf. So Rowdy Girl is now full grown. She is 11, 12 years old. She's got Houdini is her oldest daughter. Stella is her daughter, Magic. So she's got 3 girls, and she's got a son named Lucky. And none of her babies have ever, known a slaughter truck. And so I consider Rowdy Girl my daughter, and her babies, my grandchildren.
And
who's to say?
Love hearing about calves who are born in a sanctuary and who've never known the horrors. And that's a rarity. It's just so rare. And you mentioned Houdini. In fact, we have a Houdini here. I volunteer at the Gentle Barn Sanctuary, the Missouri chapter. And one of this, I don't know if you've heard of the St. Louis Six. They were the 6 males who were being raised for food, and they busted out of a slaughterhouse. They escaped. The public really advocated for their release because they were recaptured. And that's how the Gentle Barn, Missouri location was started, because of these beautiful cows. And one of them, his name is Houdini.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
Sorry, just the Houdini. I had to share that story. So
but this is the life, and that's how Rowdy Girl came to be. So I forget what I was talking about before.
Sorry, that was my bad. We were just talking about how the sanctuary came to be, and we were talking about who Rowdy Girl was and how she inspired a sanctuary to be from what was formerly a ranching operation. So so your husband was a rancher before, or was it something that he wanted to both of you to go into together at one point?
Tommy was a cattle rancher whenever we married the second time.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted to go into it. I was never a cattle rancher myself until I married Tommy. I was a Texan, and I went to rodeos and, had a collection of leather boots and, touted leather like it was, some big, fashion statement. But, I never really saw with real eyes or realized, what leather was until I went vegan. Again, it's the conditioning, it's the normalized violence and the clothes we wear and the entertainment we choose. It's all normalized. It's not something we would choose if we weren't taught that.
Yeah. Because
vegan parents that raise their kids to be vegan and to respect animals and life, they don't, decide one day to go to a rodeo and or participate in calf roping and throw little babies down on the ground and rope them up and and terrorize. I started to say the F-U-C-K out of them, but that's what they do. They terrorize them. They terrorize these animals, these babies. And, we don't do that on our own. Yeah. That's taught to us. And
nothing natural about it, right? They always say, oh, we have dominion. This is what nature intended. Like that. There's really nothing natural about that.
It's like we're in a cult. People always want to say, Renee, that veganism's a cult. Oh, hell no. The real cult is eating animals. It's so interesting, that it's like they want to call us a cult because we want to be kind to animals. And when you're over there eating blood, guts, and whatever else comes out of a chicken's butt, I mean, what?
Oh, that's so funny. I think it was you who had said, maybe on another podcast or a talk that you were giving about, like, if you really want to eat eggs, why don't you ask your girlfriend if you can scramble hers?
I did that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I use that line to every guy I see who orders eggs.
One of the things I always say, people ask me inevitably, Shreya, they'll say, they'll come here and they're not vegan, right? At the same point, well, what do you do with a chicken's eggs? And I'm like, well, what do you do with your periods?
Yeah.
I just asked the question. They're like, well, I mean, consider that you're eating the waste of what comes out of a chicken's butt.
Yeah.
Why would you eat that?
Yeah.
And why do you think it's healthy to eat what comes out of a chicken's butt? Would you want to eat what comes out of your butt? Or would you want to eat what comes out of your vagina? Would you want somebody coming in your room in the middle of the night and stealing your periods and getting it all ready for breakfast in the morning and scrambling it, or sunny side up, for heaven's sake? I mean, gross.
Quite a visual.
But we need visuals.
I know.
People get these eggs and break them open every day, and they think that that's good for you.
Yeah, because it it comes in this little pristine package, and it just, so it's like sometimes it takes this stark confrontation of, it's like, hey, this is what it is, and just because it's disturbing to you and you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true. And I get so frustrated sometimes, but I also recognize that when we are even volunteering at a sanctuary, we have to sometimes just keep it together and not totally lose it with some of the guests, because, we're here to educate. And so what is that like when you have some guests come in and maybe they're genuinely asking because they don't know about, dairy or eggs, because they've been so indoctrined to believe that these foods are healthy. But every now and then I wonder if there are some people who are actually confronting who they are exploiting for their food. And if and then they may pass some sort of just a very inappropriate comment like, ooh, that's a burger, or ooh, that's my bacon. And how do you react to comments like that with respect and compassion, but also really, getting them to really think about what drove them to say that in the first place?
So ask me that question in one sentence.
Oh my. All right. I do ask very, very long questions. One sentence. How do you react when someone makes an inappropriate comment about the residents at the sanctuary? For example,
Oh, okay.
Bacon.
Well,
burger.
bacon, yeah. Bacon, yeah. Oh God, but bacon. The thing is, when people come to the sanctuary here, they don't make inappropriate comments. Not here. That ain't gonna happen. I've never heard it.
Okay.
Now, I have heard people talk about it outside of the sanctuary, like I might be at a veg fest or a conference, but here, like right now today, we have a group of 8 or 9 women. None of them are vegan. They're vegetarian, pescatarian, and I educate them.
Yeah.
I'm out there. That's what I was doing right before I came in here, educating on veganism, not putting them down. And one of them, the bride, had tears in her eyes.
Oh.
And so, none of them are going to look at our animals here and say, oh, but I love bacon. That ain't going to happen here, even if they're not vegan.
Yeah.
This didn't happen. Now, outside of here, if somebody says to me, oh, but I love bacon, I this is what I say, because my mother does. The first time she said, Renee, you used to eat a pound of bacon a day. You loved bacon. And I did. I love the taste of bacon.
Yeah.
And I eat light life bacon. I love light life. I can bake it taste really, really good with hickory smoke and, I eat those just egg folds and I use,
yes,
that black salt, and
black salt.
I make me an egg, egg and bacon sandwich and no problem, but it's vegan.
Yeah.
And, but I told my mom, I said, Mom, how would you like it if I took a slab out of your ass? Now, I'm just telling you. How would you like it if I took a sharp knife and just cut off your backside, sliced it up real thin, and cured it, and hickory smoked it and put in salt, cured it with salt and hickory smoke and all that. And if I put it in a skillet and I made sure I cut off that part that had all that fat on it, I bet you anything, if I fried that up real crunchy and gave it to you, you'd eat a bacon sandwich made out of your butt. And you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Now, that's the kind of stuff I say to people. Oh, really? You love bacon?
Yeah.
What you really like is the taste of the backside of somebody's butt or flesh with a bunch of fat on it, cured in salt and hickory smoke. And it doesn't matter that it's a pig. It could be anybody's body.
Right.
It isn't that you love bacon. Who in their right mind loves to take an animal like a pig that's got the mentality of is it a 4-year-old, I think? 2 or 4-year-old.
Yeah, they're smart. They're smart. And again, I think one of the things that we also try to hone in is that, again, intelligence on whose scale? Like they have some capacities that we don't have. Does that make us like that? No, they're intelligent in their own. They have the skills they need to live their natural lives. And that natural, they don't have to do complex trigonometry to prove that they're smart,
So the real question is not, or the real statement is not, but bacon, I love bacon. The real statement is, I love to eat the tortured bodies of animals.
Yeah.
Can you really say that? I love to eat the tortured bodies of animals.
Yeah, that's a good
'Cause that's what
question to just
bacon is.
reframe when someone says, but bacon though. And then that's a good question to ask because I've had people tell me, like, vegan bacon, what's that? It's like, oh, you can make it out of mushrooms or tofu. This was like before and not to be like, oh, this was before all of these products came, but these products really did all of a sudden just flood into the stores. So this, I think the most plant-based bacons were either tofu based or tempeh based at restaurants, which I still enjoy those products. And I would get reactions like, ew, tofu bacon. And then a part of me would feel like, oh, I want to fit in, like I don't want to say anything. But then, like you said, when you think about it, it's like, wait, I'm eating a bean. You're eating definitely not a bean. Like, so it's like, why am I feeling bad that you think that tofu is gross, but what you're eating is perfectly fine?
A dead, tortured animal that lives in fear, that is confined, gnawing on, the bars, that has their babies squished inside of them, taken away from them, has their babies' tails docked off, their teeth cut, their testicles ripped out, everything without anesthesia. Come on. It's like, people, that is, you don't love the taste of bacon. You love the taste of dead, tortured animals.
When
it is what it is.
Yeah, and when you mentioned
the day,
yes,
just up the days for you that I went from seeing beef stew and I saw hacked up dead animal bodies. Is it beef stew, really? Or is it the hacked up pieces of a dead animal? What is it?
Yeah.
Okay. It is not beef stew. That's something we've named it.
Yeah.
It's that. And it's just like bacon. I can have vegan bacon. I like the taste of bacon too, but I like plant-based.
Yeah. The flavoring is coming from the plants. No, I don't imagine that people are eating the raw flesh of the animal, being really, really processed. So the end product looks nothing like the person who it came from in the first place. So yeah, it's so, the more you think about it, it gets like, I can feel the pressure in my head right now. It's like, oh, there's so much to be done. But I feel like when more and more people are connecting with the animals, like at sanctuaries, that their seeds are starting to unfurl too. So how what was the transition like from a ranching operation to a sanctuary, and what was that process like?
That's a great question, because cows, can live 20 plus years.
Yeah.
We have a cow out there right now that's 20, Agape. We have some that are 18, 17 years old. And normally, they don't live past, 6 months if they're lucky.
Yeah.
If it's in a cow-calf operation. If they're in the dairy industry, the males get basically discarded as who needs them, right? They just kind of pulled out and thrown in a waste dump somewhere, gagging for their life.
Yeah.
They never get to have their mother, and so, and the dairy cows, they just are milked until they're spent. And then after 5 years of just being used and abused and raped and having their babies ripped away from them, they're dragged off and hoisted up, and they can't even walk. They're so just totally defeated. You've taken everything you can out of them. That's what they do. And then they put them in the slaughter line, whether they can walk or not. And they dice them up or put them make a hamburger meat out of them. It's horrible. And, humanity is, to me, a virus on our planet. I've come to believe that there's good people. Humans have the capacity to wake up. And I believe there's a big awakening happening on planet Earth. And I believe that unborn seed, that Atman, is unfurling for lots of us. And as that happens, we, it's like we automatically begin to know our life purpose. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we went from a cattle ranch to a sanctuary, it was as if I walked outside one day, and because Tommy was like, we were fighting every day. I'd gone vegan, and I was threatening to go to the sale barn and buy all the calves back and bring them back home with his credit card, threatening to stand in front of the trailer and make him mow me down if he tried to take any of them out of here. I became an activist without even knowing I was an activist, because I just knew that when I went vegan on a cattle ranch, married to a cattle rancher, I knew that I had to stand for these animals, because if I didn't, they were going to be slaughtered. He was going to send them all to the sale barn. And so I began to spend all my time with them. And so what it was like was I went from not caring really about the fact that they were out there to them meaning everything to me. And what was it really? See, when we're desensitized, we don't feel the feelings of others. We don't have empathy. We think we do, but we don't. And when I went from being a cattle rancher, totally desensitized, to having my feelings on top of my skin, I became one of them. I became part of the herd. And so I went from a cattle ranch to becoming one of the herd. And so I started hanging out with the cows. I wouldn't even come home until late at night. I began to go where they went. When they sat down, I sat down. If they laid down, I inched myself towards them. I stayed on their level, and I tuned in with every sense in me on a different dimension so that I could become one of them. See, the only reason we don't think we're one of them is because we're taught that we're not. We're taught to be speciesist. We're all one. If I go out there and spend time with pigs or chickens or goats or cows, and I tune in to who they are, then I can get on that frequency. Humans, you have the capacity, And so when I went from a cattle ranch to a sanctuary, it was like one day I walked outside and I saw a sanctuary instead of a cattle ranch. What changed? My perception. Nothing changed except the way I looked at things. So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's really what happened. And it can happen for you too. Anybody. Change the way you look at it and everything changes.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So beautiful. And just along those lines, you had this big connection with these animals who you were seeing every day. You recognized their personality, you shifted your perception. Why do you think other ranchers who are in this space might struggle with making that same connection that you did? Is there a pressure to fit in with the status quo? I'm just curious as to what you think made it different for you, and by association, Tommy as well, who is now a vegan and animal rights activist, thanks to you. What do you think set you apart from falling within the status quo line?
Well, you're asking some very good questions. What set me apart? I grew up. I have to answer this in a very linear way. Okay. I grew up in a very poor home in Jacinto City, Texas. My daddy was a steel worker. My mama, raised three of us kids without my dad because she divorced him when I was 10. But I tell this story because it's important for people to know that, I was conceived out of date rape. Okay. My mother was raped by my father, the one she married. She was 16. He was 29. And she married my father, and she never loved him. I give you this backstory because what sets me apart is that I defied all odds. My mother was beaten every single day she was pregnant with me. And she was beaten 3 or 4 days a week until the time she divorced him when I was 10 years old. And I became her protector. I became the protector of my mother against my father. And one day I almost killed my dad because he was killing my mom. And she was being choked to death by my dad. And I was not even 8, barely 8 years old. And all I knew is that I needed to save my mom. And so with everything in me as an 8-year-old, I went in and grabbed a butcher knife and I was going to kill my dad. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just was going to take that knife and I was going to just lunge into my daddy's back because he was choking her. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if my dad kicked me or my mama kicked me or what. The next thing you know, the knife's flying across the room and I didn't kill my dad. But I grew up fighting for the underdog. I grew up protecting. What sets me apart, Kip Anderson asked me this one time. He said, Renee, what kind of person defies all odds? What kind of person goes up against tradition in Texas? What kind of person would walk in front of a cattle trailer and be mowed down? Who are you, Renee? What kind of person does that? That's why I'm answering your question like this, Rhea, because it's not an easy answer. And I said to him, he said, I really want to know where this all started. Who are you? I said, well, do you want to know really where I was like, where my life started? He said, yeah. I said, well, I was conceived in a graveyard. He said, you got my attention. My daddy raped my mother right at a graveyard where his first wife was buried just a few months earlier. She had committed suicide. She blew her brains out and she was buried. And my daddy took my mother there. And that's what happened. And I was conceived and my mother didn't abort me, thank God. You never know who you're aborting in the world.
True.
So we got to be very careful. You never know who you're aborting. And so I'm a product of date rape. I say that way. But I grew up fighting. I became an alcoholic. I became a drug addict. I grew up like just on the edge of life. Always trying to beat the odds. And then I got sober. And when I got sober, I began to want to experience all of life. And I got sober January the 8th of 2013. But I had tried to get sober for 31 years ago, and I kept relapsing. And why do I tell you this? Because you asked me a very difficult question. Who does this? What sets you apart, Renee? I think it's the ingredients that make up your life. See, if I can come through if I can come through a life where I was born out of date rape, where my mother was kicked and beaten every day I was in her womb, if I can come through a family where my mother was beaten every day and I had to protect my mother almost every day of her life till she left him, if I can beat all odds, if I can go through drug addiction, alcoholism, and all this and still come out sober, if I can do all this, there ain't nothing I can't do. All right. I have defied all odds, and I will go to my dying breath defending animals, because now that I know what I know, there ain't nothing going to stop me from protecting them. That's why I'm really here. And I really do believe I went through everything I went through to have the spirit, to have the backbone, to have the voice, to fight for them, to live for them, to be their voice. That's it. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, wow. I definitely was not expecting that. And
probably not.
I am sorry for what you experienced, and I deeply, deeply appreciate your openness and vulnerability in sharing that story with us. And I can't thank you enough for trusting the space to share. So thank you. And
I think I've only shared that one other time. I think I've only shared that one other time on a podcast, and it was with I was with Dr. Sailesh Rao, and I shared the story. And the reason I do is because I'm writing a book right now, and being vulnerable, being real is what we got to do. You know, we all live in the social media world of being fake.
Yeah.
You know, it drives me crazy. One thing you will never be able to define me as is fake. I promise you that what you see is what you get. And I have to tell these stories because there might be somebody else out there that never would tell this story, and it might be killing them on their insides. And because I've lived through it, my AA sponsors will be here today. I'm celebrating my 9-year birthday of sobriety at my home group tonight. See, I talk about this because, see, I have another life. All of this makes up who I am. I work with other alcoholics. I work with other drug addicts. I have another life apart from animal activism that is all about helping others, being of service.
Yeah. So it's not, I love that you mentioned that, because as a vegan, as animal rights activists, we're not here to say animals above all. We're saying everybody, we're all equal in every way that truly matters. There's no difference significant enough to warrant exploiting, abusing, and subjecting another being to the kinds of torture that society does and that has been normalized. So showing that and sharing stories of such resilience where, like you said, there could be people out there who are feeling alone, and now they know that, okay, just knowing that there's just one person out there who they can find a semblance of connection to is so powerful.
Because, see, when I realized that my mother married her perpetrator, she didn't know what else to do. She had no choice. When I found out that I was conceived in date rape, it gutted me. That's when I really, went headlong into drug addiction and alcoholism. I just, you want to kill that pain. But there's hope. That's why when you ask me, what kind of person, how did you do this? Well, if I can live through that, and I can not only live through it, thrive. I am about thriving. I am sober. I am vegan. I am, I have learned how to be prosperous for these animals. That's why I ask everyone, become a member of Rowdy Girl. The work we do is going to transcend me and Tommy's life. Mm-hmm. Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, when me and Tommy are dead and gone, has got to live on. Our story will be bigger than us when we die. I guarantee you there'll be a film one day on it A documentary is coming out next year. A docuseries is in the works. Becoming a member is going to help us take not just a sanctuary that protects animals into the world, but a story that will change the world. So you have to become a member. It's bigger than us, you see. So, yeah, I say that all the time to people. When you become a member, you're not just feeding the animals, you're feeding the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. And we're really up against just this, like you said, this ingrained idea of animal exploitation. And again, feeding the world with these powerful stories. It's important because I think what helps with change is stories really finding these personal connections that are very valuable. And I'm just so excited for the work that that you are doing, that you have done, that you will continue to do as a fierce protector for these animals. So I guess let's talk about the Rancher Advocacy Program that you have spearheaded, helping those who are currently in the cattle ranching operation to, really get in tune with their compassion and shift their operation. How has that program been? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, the Rancher Advocacy Program was an organic outpouring.
A veganic outpouring?
Yeah, veganic, outpouring. Good call. But it was like organic from within me.
Yeah.
What happened was when I went vegan, and our story started showing up on major news outlets like CBS Evening News, ABC, NBC, Animal Planet. Our story was told in the magazine of Southwest Airlines. It's been translated in 9 or 10 languages. It's going to be in Swedish next week. So when our story started landing in the laps of everyday people, a lot of those people were cattle ranchers. A lot of those people were chicken farmers. And they began to, like they'd be sitting in their living room eating or whatever, or just watching TV. And all of a sudden, cattle ranchers would be on the news and they would relate to us. And the wives particularly began to reach out to me in tears. They would always tell me, they still do, I saw your story. I heard you talk about how you went against your husband. I heard you talk about how you love these cows and I don't have anybody else to talk to. And so kind of like, in AA, in recovery, one alcoholic can best talk to another alcoholic. That's how the program works. You can't really understand unless you've been there. Mm-hmm. And so I began to have a program, I didn't even know it, for recovering ranchers.
I love
especially
recovering ranchers. I love that phrase.
Especially their wives. They would call me wanting to know, and they would just cry their eyes out. They'd always been wanting to talk about this, never could. And I would just listen to them. And then I would tell them that I understood how they feel. And as a result, I began to take on animals from other cattle ranches, because the wives would tell their husbands, by God, I would tell them stuff like, you go tell your husband that you're going to take a bullet in the street if he tries to take that cow to the sale barn. And I said, that's what I did. Go do what I did. And so they would do that. They would come back and say it worked. Go tell your husband that by God, you're laying the law down. And if he takes some cows up to the trailer barn one more time, the sale barn, you're going to follow him and you're going to buy them all back. And
with his credit card.
With his credit card. And she said, and they would say stuff like, I can do that? I said, well, I did. I don't know if you can or not, but that's what I did. And so, anyway, oh my God. So they would come back to me and they would say, you know, my husband gets it. He knows I don't want to see this animal go to the sale barn. And so we have several cows that are here that are rescued right out of cattle ranchers because of cattle ranchers' wives and husbands and men that have had a change of heart. They, some of them, a couple of them are vegan. Some of them definitely see the world different and are transitioning vegan. But that's how the Rancher Advocacy Program happened. It was a very organic conversation that happened. And one day there was a lady in my advisory committee that said, Renee, you need a program for Rowdy Girl. And so what kind of programming would you like to have? This was about 4.5 years ago. And I said, well, I don't know. She said, well, what do you do that's different? I said, well, I don't really tell anybody this, but I talk to cattle ranchers' wives a lot. Ever since our story went on the news and stuff, I said, cattle ranchers' wives call me, cattle ranchers. You know, I talk to cattle ranchers. And she said, tell me more. And so from that became the Rancher Advocacy Program.
Yeah.
And I don't solicit cattle ranchers to join us.
Mm.
They come to me. I am not going to go out there and be a bleeding deacon. I'm not going to go out there and say, you know, you're doing everything wrong. You need to join RAP. No. When these people call me, that's when I know their seed is ready to unfurl. That's when I know I can water that seed. If I try to go at them, all I'm going to do is piss them off. Yeah. You know, but if they come to me, that's why telling these stories is so important. That's why every time we talk about cattle ranchers changing, you know, it's amazing. Like right now, we're doing some real amazing work. I'm not at liberty to talk about it right this second.
That's fine. We'll find out
some things happen.
Once it's public.
You will.
No.
Once this documentary comes out next year or this year, it's going to be this year. Once this documentary comes out, we are waiting on what's happening right now so we can get the ending. And it's going to be freaking spectacular. And it's going to change the world. And so it's a long time coming. And the Rancher Advocacy Program is all about inspiring, educating, and giving those that want change an opportunity to change.
Because that's when
if you want to change, if you want to change from a cattle rancher or a chicken farmer or a goat, if you want to change, I will go to hell and back to help you. If you don't want to, then, you know, go ahead on.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. I mean, it's just a waste of your time and energy unless the other party's willing to put in the work and actually wants to. Yeah. And so the animals who live with you in your beautiful sanctuary, are they mostly from local ranching operations, or do they come from auctions or from slaughterhouses? Where are they coming from? I
can check off all those lists. I could check off every box. They come from all those places. And we have 120 animals here.
Wow.
And every one of them have a story of some sort that would be horrific, you know, if they didn't come here. You know, when I rescued the whole herd, I mean, we're the first cattle ranch in the world that I know of that was ever, you know, bold enough to talk about it anyway, that rescued their whole herd from going to slaughter. So it wasn't a big herd, but it was still a herd. I mean, we had 29 cows, and a lot of them were pregnant and getting pregnant, and they're all still here. And I rescued every one of them and did that fundraiser, you know, early on, where I raised $36,000 and bought my husband's cows. So those cows are here. Their babies are here. And then we rescue FFA and 4-H animals. Just rescued we just rescued a lamb named Gilbert. We're getting ready to rescue.
Was it Gilbert?
Gilbert. In fact, I've got his tags right here. You can see them.
Oh.
These are Gilbert's tags. They were on his ears. And yeah, and these are his tags. And we, you know, this family loves this animal, and they became a member, and they're coming to volunteer here. You know, we have two other sheep that are rescues from FFA, Leo and DeMarcus. We have several steer. I can't count how many steer we have, and heifers that are rescued out of FFA and 4-H. We have goats that are rescued out of slaughterhouses. We have goats that are rescued that were found in a field with their umbilical cords still attached. You know, I have so many stories. We rescued a whole flock of hens, Cornish cross hens from Colorado that were, having their heads all ripped off because the farm went bankrupt, and all these chickens, like 20,000 of them, were being they were freezing to death. And we rescued 15 of them, and they all came to Rowdy Girl. I can't tell you how many stories. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. Are there any
go to our website?
Yeah, are there activist open rescues that who come to your place too? Like, do you coordinate with activists who are doing rescues to have them bring the animals they rescue?
Yeah, we sure have. Annalise is here from an open rescue. We have several hens that are here from an open rescue.
Oh, that's so wonderful that they have a safe, loving home where they can just live the rest of their lives in dignity. I think that's just dignity, peace, free from harm. And I think this really gives a great example of how we can coexist with these animals, which was a question that I did have for you. And this is mostly your opinion on what you think a world would look like because currently we have this idea of, okay, companion animals, dogs, cats, we can live with them in the city. Animals who are being farmed, they have to live out in the countryside because they need more space. And so then we have the animals who live out in the wilderness. And so I see the segregation, but I'm also curious of what it would look like to coexist with animals who have been domesticated. For example, cows, pigs, chickens. Some people can have them as companions, but I mean, if you're living in the middle of New York City, I don't know that you would want to have a cow in your apartment. But I'm curious as to what your thoughts are when it comes to a vegan world where we coexist with these animals.
Yeah. Yes. Another good question. Since I've gone vegan, my mantra with all the animals we rescue is that it's never good enough. It's never good enough because all of these animals should be free. They should not be confined and tortured and bred into existence. The vegan world started, in my opinion, in the Garden of Eden. And, in my mind, I'm a very spiritual girl. I'm an Essene. If I have to call myself anything, it's an Essene Christian. Essene. I really do believe in that Jesus was vegan. And I really do. And I study all the books, about that. I just bought one by Keith Akers called The Lost Religion of Jesus. And so if I was to imagine a vegan world, it would be like Jesus was born in a manger. The cows and the chickens and the goats all came to witness this wonderful experience, right? This event. They weren't confined and tortured and slaughtered afterwards. They were part of the process. And, like earlier when we were all out here with the volunteers, cleaning up Lulu's pen and Magic's pen and all around, all the cows that were outside of there, they all came over and they all just kind of watched us and they just wanted to be part of. And so a vegan world is where you do what you do, take care of yourself, each other, and the animals participate. They're not there to be, gawked over, loved on, and petted, unless they want to be. Some Some of them will absolutely mow you down to get a neck rub. Some of them are hands off. They don't want you near them. They just want to watch.
Yeah.
Some of them want to play really hard. They want to take their head. When you come out there, they want to play with you. And so you got to know, whoa, better stay away from that guy. He wants to play. All he has is a head to play with. So, coexisting with these animals is witnessing them, observing them. And we have 147 acres here, but it ain't enough. When I imagine that the planet has all this land that is being used to breed animals, to kill the rainforest, to kill horses off the open range, to kill wild animals that are threatening cattle ranchers. When I imagine that we have all this land that we're using wrong, if we could all come together and use it right, there would be no need for sanctuaries. A real vegan world would exist if we would just quit using our planet inappropriately. We don't need to manage wildlife. We need to manage humanity. Wildlife will do just fine, if we would quit managing it. It's like natural predation is normal. Natural predation in the wild is normal. That's what we should never have stopped that. What we should have done is stop breeding humans. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, we should all have enough sense to know that you can't feed 10 billion humans with a limited playing field here. You can't do it. It won't happen. It can't happen. So humanity needs to have enough sense to stop having babies and start adopting children. Adopting children that need adopting. We need to leave these animals alone. There ain't gonna be enough land. We don't have another planet Earth. So a vegan world is when we can just leave them alone and monitor our own selves. Adopt. Just like we tell people to adopt, don't shop. How about adopting instead of having babies? I don't mean this wrongly. It just makes so much sense to me to stop the population explosion.
Yeah, it is a very yes. I empathize with you as well. And as someone who also has no intention of procreating, and as a huge advocate for adopting animals and human and beyond human, but I also recognize the I can't even think of the word because it's such a personal issue to many that I feel like I don't know what to say. I can speak from my personal preference, but yeah, it is envisioning a vegan world, which is a question that I do like to ask because I want different perspectives of how different activists and different leaders and creatives in the space have of what this vegan world looks like. And I was gonna ask you, do you see sanctuaries fitting into that? And you did address that briefly by mentioning that that sanctuaries are perhaps going to be instrumental in attaining that vegan world, but maybe not required when we reach a vegan world.
Yeah, the thing is, good point. Sanctuaries are necessary because these animals have nowhere else to go right now. But in my mind, I'd like to see a vegan world where I can open up all the gates.
Yeah.
Where I could let them live without having to depend on humans. But they have to now. And so, see, to have dominion over animals means to be a good steward. Not to dominate them and kill them or breed them or sell them or use them That's not dominion over animals. That's freaking being a tyrant over animals. True dominion in the spirit of Jesus is a steward, or in the spirit of Buddha, or in the spirit of, Krishna, any of them, is to be a good steward, to be their eyes, to be their ears, to be their voice, to be, right now they need sanctuary. So, but having said that, it is very difficult to have a sanctuary and survive. Taking care of animals in a sanctuary is very expensive. Our monthly budget is $25,000 a month. I remember when I used to think $25,000 a year was a lot of money. It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
When you got to take care of 120 animals, not just feed them, care for them, give them proper nutrition, not just anything, proper nutrition, a lot of hay. I mean, the hay we buy costs us, $30,000 a year just for hay. And when you imagine all the feed is about, I don't even want to guess right now. But the vet care, that it takes, the operations to run a real nonprofit so that it doesn't go down and so you don't lose everything and go bankrupt. You have to have bookkeepers. You have to have a CPA. You have to have administrative assistant. You have to have animal caretakers. You have to have marketing. You have to have people to help with social media. I mean, if you're going to really run a sanctuary, you got to be a business mind. You can't just love animals.
Yes.
Well, you will fail miserably.
All the aspiring sanctuary people out there. I know a lot of people they love the idea of having a farmed animal rescue sanctuary, but it's easier said than done. So lots of good advice. Keep them coming.
Well, you'll fail miserably.
Yeah.
When me and Tommy when I first started Rowdy Girl and Tommy started getting on board, it was just me and Tommy taking care of all the animals. And I was doing everything. Me and Tommy doing everything. And then all of a sudden, our story went viral. And it was like more was being asked of us. I began to be asked to go to speak here and speak there. And I'm not going to say no, and I'm going to be a voice for the animals. But if I leave, who's going to take care of the animals? So I began to get help from our board that we had to grow. And growing meant we needed more money. Not so I can go out and go on a tour around the world, because I want to it's so I can take care of not only these animals, but so I can take care of Rowdy Girl's legacy into the future. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to have a sanctuary, you need to know why you want that sanctuary, and you need to grow with it. You can't if all you want to do is take care of animals, then be very mindful of how many animals you rescue. And you need to own your own land. You've got to own your own land. Because what happens if somebody comes in and takes away your property, or you can't afford to pay for it anymore? The animals die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very valuable points. You've got to be practical about it. Yes, it's admirable and idealistic to want to rescue them all, but also to be very, very practical about your capacity and your resources and expand from there, or go based off of what you're able to handle. Because like you said, at the end of the day, if it's not done properly, the animals are they're going to bear the brunt of it, and we don't want that.
Yeah, because see, when I went vegan, I am an entrepreneur. I'm a business person. I used to have a medical spa with a bunch of doctors. I've had my own yoga studio. I was a former realtor with a very successful business. And so I have experience in promotions and marketing in my other life. And so when I went vegan to take care of these animals, I used everything in my toolbox to make sure that this sanctuary thrives, not just survives. If you're just trying to survive, you will wear yourself out. Yeah. Like right now, we are planning on our board, to have a fundraising director. we are planning on our board to eventually get somebody else to take my place as executive director, so that me and Tommy can be the founders and go out there and take our story into the world.
Yep.
You know, you can't do that if you don't have other people in place. And those things, that is expensive. You have to plan for that. You have to fundraise for that. That's why membership is so important. That's why I say, if you're not a member, become one. Because if everybody out there, if our 25,000, 26,000 followers on Instagram all donated $5 a month, how much would that be?
Yeah.
Add it up. Add it up right now. Add up.
Oh no, we're doing math now.
Yeah. Add up. 26. Yeah. Well, the reason why is because I want you to understand this. 26,000 times $5 equals $130,000 a year. It costs us $25,000 a month. You understand?
That is a lot of money. Yeah.
So if everybody becomes a follower, not just becomes, if all my followers become members, even if it's $5 a month, no, actually that would be $130,000 a month, which would be awesome. Because not only would we be able to pay for our existing operations, we could get that executive director, we could get that fundraising director, and me and Tommy, who's about to be 64 years old, could go do what we need to do to take our story into the world.
Yeah.
So I'm inspiring all of you to become a member, because there's power in numbers.
Yes.
And I'm not asking for it so I can go on a yacht trip somewhere and take a cruise and get a suntan. I'm asking for it so that we can continue the legacy of our story long after Tommy and I are gone.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we'll be sure to include all of that information in the show notes. And if there are people, some of our mentors and mentees maybe live in the area or nearby, and perhaps they would be called to volunteer and help out. So do you accept volunteers, or is it, do you have every weekly volunteering sessions for people to come out and help?
It's all done by appointment, and a lot of groups come out here.
Okay.
Like we have a wedding party today, and people that want to volunteer go on our website under Get Involved and How to Volunteer, and they fill out the online form. We get it, and we schedule them time to come out. People can come out and volunteer just whenever they want to. They just got to be cleared through our system.
Yep.
And then we have our annual volunteer day every year in February, and it's sponsored by All Y'all's Foods, Happy Vegans, and Hungry Planet.
Oh yeah, love them all. So great. Oh, that's so wonderful, Renee. And this was such a beautiful conversation, and I just so appreciate the vulnerability, the honesty, and I totally understand what you mean by what you see is what you get. And you are, just say things as it is. And we need a lot more of this honest, vulnerable, fierce protection for all beings out there in the world. And I'm just so inspired by the work that you do, your story and your resilience and persistence. I could keep going. All of the adjectives are just going to keep going, but I just thank you. And I'm so grateful that Rowdy Girl, who is just living her happy life, really had that effect.
You made me think of something just then.
Yes.
You made me think of something I have to say, because
please do.
I have a really, dramatic story coming from date rape. But think about all the animals that are raped every day. Mm-hmm. They don't get to tell their story. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Nobody cares that cows are raped all the day, every day. Nobody cares. They just let it happen. And I know there's probably a lot of women out there that are conceived out of date rape and would never even talk about it out of embarrassment or fear or whatever. We got to talk about these things. We got to talk about it, and we've got to correlate it to the animals. Animals are abused. My mother was abused, beaten while she was pregnant. Imagine the cows that are beaten when they're pregnant, that are hung upside down with their throat slits and their bellies cut open with babies falling out. It's no different. We've got to be the voice. We've got to be the hands. That's why I'm showing up on your podcast today. Is not because I'm trying to get popular. I mean, we already have a following, but because I really, you know what I mean? It's like the reason we have a following is because I am that fierce person that, I just tell it like it is. That's how we got our follow. I've never bought the first follower, and our following is very organic. And I'm hoping that it doubles this year. I think it will because of some stuff happening. But, we've got to be willing to be real.
Yeah.
If you're fake and you're just buying a bunch of followers and, not that that's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but is it real? Is that what if you've got a real story and you've got a real mission and you can correlate that to animal rights, do that. Take your story, whatever it is, and correlate it to your passion for animal rights. Be unafraid to tell your story. Because if you can, without fear, tell your story, then you can, with passion and heart, tell the story of these animals.
Yeah. Lovely. Wonderfully said. And just since we are the Animal Activism Mentorship Program, and this is part of our podcast series, I would love to end this wonderful conversation with a question about mentorships in your life and who, or human or beyond human, who have been mentors in your life, and how do you aspire to show up as a mentor moving forward? You did touch upon that with the Rancher Advocacy Program work that you do, but I'm curious about mentors that you've had in your life.
Yeah, thank you. I always love talking about them. Gosh, I have so many. One of my greatest mentors that is kind of behind the scenes and never gets noticed is a lady by the name of Nikki. And she was the one that inspired the Rancher Advocacy Program. And she works tirelessly for the animals, but she does it all behind the scenes, and she does not even want to be recognized. She works with major organizations in the world. And she's fierce. I'm the kind of person that's very naive, and I sometimes have a very innocent way of looking at things and seeing the world. I don't know how, but I do. She is shrewd. She sees through all the bullshit. And so she helps me. She's kind of like my counterbalance. Her name is Nikki. And then another great mentor of mine is my husband.
Wow.
I wouldn't probably ever tell him that to his face, but I'm sure he'll hear this. And,
yeah. Like you hear this once, just remember that.
Tommy, to see Tommy go from a cattle rancher to a vegan. To watch my husband, who used to send animals to a cell barn, protect them. It makes me know that there's hope for all cattle ranchers, because my husband is the epitome of a vegan John Wayne. I mean, if you know who John Wayne was in the world, the way my husband was before he was vegan. And he has that persona, bigger than life. And he's a protector now. He takes care. He's the one that goes and gets all the feed, all the supplies. He's out there right now giving all of our volunteers tours of the animals, telling their stories. He's my foundation. Without him, there'd be no Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. He is my rock. I always imagine it like he's the roots and I'm the air. I'm the ether. I go out into the, he keeps me rooted so I can be the visionary. And I don't mean to cry. It's just
it's such a real moment, and I'm grateful to share it with you. So thank you for that.
So those are two of my greatest mentors. I have a lot of mentors. I mean, I can be very certain, Kip Anderson was a big mentor, Gene Bauer in the early days was a big mentor. Linda Middlesworth, founder of VDog, is a big mentor of mine. And I have so many. I learn from everyone. You're one of my mentors, Rhea.
Oh, that made my day. Oh my gosh, Renee.
Because I see something I can learn from in everyone.
Yeah.
All of our members that are on our membership, they're actually on my speed dial. I mean, everybody has my cell phone. I don't make myself unavailable. You want to talk to me? You can get me.
Yeah.
I'm not unavailable. I'm very available.
Yeah.
And so as a result, I have lots of mentors. And as far as how I show up to be a mentor, I just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm always available for people.
Yeah.
Last night, I did 3 or 4 meetings yesterday. I was in meetings all day. And my voice gets really hoarse because I talk all the time. That's why I got to space all this stuff out. Because I'm on the Agriculture Fairness Alliance as well.
Yeah, I volunteer with them.
Yeah, and so we have meetings every week, and so I'm was on the phone yesterday with them for about 2 hours, talking about all kind of stuff. And so, if you don't, if you also need to join them. You need to become a member of AFA because as a mentor, I really do believe that we have to make a difference in all areas.
Yeah.
Sanctuaries, legislation, activism, all of it.
Oh, yeah.
If you buy money, if you spend money at Starbucks, or if you spend money on cigarettes, or if you spend money on whatever you spend money on, make sure you're also spending money on sanctuaries, legislation, and activism.
Yeah. Wonderful way to wrap up this just beautiful conversation. I just feel like I'm at a loss of words to describe how I'm feeling, but I wish everyone can experience this moment and this space, but I'm sure they will when they hear this episode, and just be able to resonate with a lot of what you said and really think critically about how they show up in this world practically, but also fearlessly, as you've done with so much grace. And just thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and your days of meetings, and just really championing the work that you do. So thank you, Renee. Keep fighting the good fight for all life on the planet.
Well, thank you. Please subscribe to our newsletter, y'all. Subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube.
Become members, support all of the brilliant work that Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is doing, and enjoy Rowdy Girl's beautiful face, her heart. She wears a heart on her head, and literally. So you cannot get enough of Rowdy Girl content. The residents there are just so lovely and will bring so much life and joy to your days.
Thank you, Sriya, for showing up in my world today. You've made a big difference in my life.
Yes, as have you. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I feel super energized after that conversation. Renee's experiences are a testament to the power of resilience and perseverance in any social justice movement. They're crucial reminders that we are all capable of positive change and doing what's right. All it takes is that one seed and the right amount of nurturing to do the trick. Be sure to check out our show notes for resources on how you can learn more about and support the important work that Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and Renee's Rancher Advocacy Program are doing. The toolkit to create a vegan world is truly endless. Now, before we sign off, please take a quick minute to rate and review the podcast. It helps others find it more easily, and the more people that find us, the more they can be inspired by the guests we interview on our show and turn that into actionable change for all animals. Don't forget to check out our website, animalactivismmentorship.com, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship, where you can keep up with the podcast as well as all things AAM. Accessibility to our content without any hindrance is key to our work here at AAM. That's why it's important to us that we offer our resources for free. So if you like what we do at the Animal Liberation Hour and at AAM and would like to support us, of course, given you have the financial ability to do so, please feel free to contribute to our Patreon. It helps keep us going. Animal Activism Mentorship is so proud and honored to be fueled by Farm Animal Rights Movement. One more reminder that you can sign up for a free mentor to help you with your activism at animalactivismmentorship.com. So if you're still looking for that sign that you need to be an activist for the animals, here you go. And remember, it will take all of us to achieve animal liberation. So let's stay focused, positive, support one another, and be the change of compassion that we envision for this world. Until next time.